call this special full board meeting to order. First item on the agenda is roll call. Sorry.
Mrs. Grassi? Mrs. Stevens?
Here.
Mr. Bowler?
Here.
Mrs. Harrington?
Here.
Mr. Nicholson?
Here.
Mr. Lynch?
Here.
Mr. Munn?
Here.
Mr. Pappas? Mr. O'Connor?
Present.
Mr. Downs?
Here.
Mr. Kamari?
Present.
Mr. Watson?
Here.
Mrs. Stokes?
Here.
Thank you.
All right, we have a forum. Mr. Pappas was unable to attend even though he wanted to be here. He had an open house for Oyster River this evening, so I want you to take that note. It's a hard time getting that done. So, next item on the agenda is the public comment. Anyone from the public want to address the board, please approach the podium. Okay, seeing none. Move on to item number 2, labor management issue. Okay. We have had a discussion about this in a previous meeting, I apologize. So first thing I would do is I would make a motion to rescind our previous rescind our current mask policy.
Make a second, that will, did you make the motion or are you entertaining the motion?
I'll make the motion.
You made the motion, I'll second the motion.
All right. Any discussion? Ms. Stevens?
Yeah, I need to know why? What's the plan?
The second motion is going to be the new plan. We had this in non-public, at a non-public meeting a while back. When was the non-public?
The Monday night meeting, yeah,
Right.
that I couldn't go to, yeah.
Correct. So there was a lot of discussion there about specifically the how and why.
Okay, all right.
We do have a non-public that we'll add to this session and we'll be able to discuss it in that format.
Okay.
Okay? So there is a motion on the floor to rescind our current mask policy. We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
One opposed. Motion, second motion I'd like to make a motion for approval. Pre-K through 12 masks are optional for anyone in our schools unless the Stratford County 7-day test positive exceeds 10%. If the Stratford County meets or exceeds 10%, everyone will wear a mask for the following 5 school days.
Could you say that one more time?
Yes. Pre-K to 12, masks are optional for anyone in our schools unless the Stratford County 7-day positivity rate exceeds 10%. If Stratford County meets or exceeds 10%, everyone will wear a mask for the following 5 school days. So, I'll give you an example. If it hits 10% on Thursday, they'd have to wear a mask Friday and the next 4 days of the following week. We don't count the Saturday, Sunday days.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
The Stratford County rate, does that include UNH, the jail? So it includes nothing like that?
No.
And then how many days so far have we been over the 10%? Does anybody, so 1 day so far? So had it been that 1 day, we would have been wearing masks for the next 5?
Mhm.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
Just, when you say 7-day, you're talking about 7-day average.
No, we're talking about this,
It's on the
7-day
dashboard, so
positivity.
it goes right to that dashboard. You can pull up your-
right, it's right on the
For the
DHHS.
past 7 days.
It's looking at the past 7 days, getting you a percentage of what your average percentage was.
It's what the DHHS calculates out for the 7-day rate.
Okay.
Okay? Anything else? Mr. Bowler?
Just one point of clarity for everybody. Previously, when we were talking about Rochester only numbers,
Yeah.
the antigen and PCR test was put on a different page. It is not there as I look today.
Right.
So we would be looking at county numbers.
Correct. Any other questions? Mrs.
Okay.
Stokes?
So we're not going to be concerned over how many we have in our school or anything that's specific school related. We're just looking at Stratford County numbers.
That's what we're doing right now.
Okay.
Mr. Kamiri?
Well, to that point, correct me if I'm wrong, if we have a cluster defined by the state in a particular school, it's automatic in that school. So Spalding High is identified a cluster, Spalding falls into for a 10-day period.
So that's right, perimeter built by the state.
Can I just respond? I get that. I guess my thing is, if we're at 10% for one day, but 2 of our schools have 0 cases or very low cases, are we gonna mandate masks for all of them? I guess that's what I'm just trying to get in my head. Because I thought originally we were looking at also like what the numbers were in our schools. So I completely support the cluster if there's one in our schools, but I guess if we have high numbers but we don't have high numbers in our schools.
I just,
Miss-
is it me?
No, Ms. Stevens, I'm
Okay.
Mr.
I guess I saw the news this morning, and they were talking about clusters, identified clusters in schools last year compared to this year. Last year, it was like 112 for the year. This year, since September, it's 96. So I guess go ahead.
I can speak to that. I mean, more than half of the schools didn't go to school until April. So that's why the number is different. Now, every school is in school, right? So that's why the number would be higher.
Mr. Boyer?
Just a procedural question where we have a motion on the floor in order to discuss this further. Shouldn't we have a second?
Second.
So I just want to make sure.
Yep, no, that's good.
Good
Good,
procedure.
I'm glad, thank you for checking on that.
So now,
Any other discussion? Mr. Boyer?
So personally, I'll be voting not in favor of this motion. And the reason why is we are making a decision based off of one data point at one single day. Any decisions I make, I look at multiple day data points. So I understand why we would use the Stratford County. It's also the idea is to get ahead of an issue in the school. I would be more proponent of 3 days personally with the 5-day. So that's why I do agree we should not, masks should be optional unless that metric's in place. Doing a little more research, I will agree with the 10%. But personally, I would like 3 days to see a trend in that direction and then a 5-day. But that's my personal opinion.
Okay. Mr. O'Connor?
I just want to be on record, I think this has come up because of concern for equity among staff, and I just want to, my vote to not rescind the policy is due to the fact that we're not in equitable times. We have a population who's not able to get the vaccine versus a population who has a choice to get the vaccine. So that was why I voted to not rescind the policy, and will vote no against this recommendation.
Thank you very much. Mr. Munn?
I'll follow up with what Matt had stated, and the reason I believe as well that we should be looking more at a 3-day thing is back to Dr. Chan's email to us about where they came up with this 10%. This is based on last year's numbers. Last year's numbers when way more people were getting tested to be able to return to work, and we were in a state of emergency at that point. Many more people were getting tested at the drop of the hat. Less people testing positive compared to the amount of people testing because of the circumstances. Therefore, basing those numbers this year is different than, well, how we do it this year is different than how we did last year. So I'd like to see a trend of 3 days as well.
Mr. Boyer?
Just a food for thought, when you are tested now, they are asking you if you are in agreement for your test results to be shared. So it's reported at the state level, you can say no. So if someone does that, then how do you know? That's why I like to see a trend to feel more comfortable.
Stokes?
Just to tag on that, you can actually get boxes now at Walmart or Walgreens or wherever, and you can get tested. I just tested on Sunday because my school had a large number, so I just wanted to make sure because I have a cold, and I didn't report it. So, I mean, it was negative, of course, but I mean, to go off what you said, you're correct. So we're looking at numbers that people are going in and tested. That's not counting like home testing kits as well, because you're not reporting it.
Okay. Anyone else? I think the average 3-day, looking at what happened in February and April of last year, I think we're playing catch the rabbit. I think 3 days is a stretch, but I respect the feedback. It's good back and forth. So I think because of the sensitivity of this vote, we'll probably do a roll call, all right, just so we're all on the same page. So we have a motion and a second. I'm gonna ask Mr. Fusi for a roll call vote. So a yes vote is that you're saying yes to the 7-day, 10%, 5-day follow-up on a 1-day 10. Understand? I'm gonna reread it just so we're all on the same page. Okay. A no vote says you're saying no to that. Okay. Mr. Fusi, if you could roll call, please.
Mrs. Stevens,
No.
Mr. Bollier,
No.
Mr. O'Connor,
No.
Mr. Downs,
No.
Mr. Munn,
No.
Mrs. Harrington,
No.
Mr. Lynch,
Yes.
Mr. Cleary,
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson,
Yes.
Mrs. Stokes,
No.
Mr. Watson.
Yes.
7-4. No.
Okay, the motion fails. Is there a new motion on the floor? Mrs. Harrington?
I'd like to make the motion that masks remain optional for grades pre-K to 12 until the 10% or greater is reached for 3 days in a row. Then we will wear masks for 5 days, the following 5 days.
Second. We have a motion and a second. So Mrs. Harrington, if I could just get clarification. You're saying pre-K through 5 masks are optional?
Pre-K
For any-
through 12. Pre-K
Oh,
through 12.
sorry, you're right, I apologize. Pre-K through 12, masks are optional for anyone in our schools unless the Stratford County 7-day number is 10% for 3 consecutive school days.
3 consecutive days.
3 consecutive days, so even if it's Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
3 consecutive days.
Kids aren't in school on Saturday and Sunday. So we want the superintendent
State
to
doesn't do the numbers.
check.
Well, you,
Does the state do numbers on Saturdays and Sunday?
I thought so.
So if it's the same number on Friday through Saturday and Sunday,
And I'll just say, having looked at it all last year and most of this year, it depends. They will sometimes do a late update Friday night, which again is kind of what they use for the weekend, and then it doesn't really get changed until Tuesday morning. Sometimes they've updated it on Sunday. And they always put it as updated date, so I guess it would be 3 days of those updated dates,
Yeah,
perhaps.
right. 3 days in a row of updated
okay,
data.
make sure we're all on the same page. Does everyone understand the motion?
So can you just say that?
Yeah, so masks are optional for pre-K to 12 for anyone in the building unless the Stratford County 7-day positivity rate reaches 10% or higher for 3 consecutive recorded days of data. And then everyone wears a mask for 5 days, 5 school days.
Can I ask, are we asking too much to ask for Kyle to look for these numbers on a Saturday or Sunday? I mean, he may say no, but you know what I mean, like, I also think
I
that.
agree with you, but that's why I asked that question specifically.
I guess that's my concern is, are you asking the superintendent every single day to look for those numbers? Is that fair to ask that of him?
Have you been doing that anyway?
When student safety is concerned, I will do it every single day, twice on Sunday.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm with you,
for
Karen.
showing.
I mean, if he has somewhere to go on a weekend and you have plans, I don't think it's fair for us to make that. Then I have no idea.
Mr. Nicholson?
This will be, I'm gonna vote no for this one, just as I feel that the 3-day rate, you will be too far behind by the time you put masks on. I still feel that's my feeling on that, so I'll be voting no for this one.
Mr. Watson?
Can we clarify masks for everybody? Is that inside and outside, or?
Indoors only. Out-
Indoors only,
Yeah.
okay,
It said, the way it was written, in our schools is the way we said
Yeah,
it.
okay.
So that's how it was presented. That's the motion, correct?
yes.
Okay, Mr. Munn?
5 days from the last day of, if we're at above 10 for 5 days, the 5 days of masking would still continue 5 days
Correct.
after that last day, right?
Till the
So-
number falls
So
below
we'll be
10.
wearing for 5 days of being below 10 for, let it clear out. So we could be wearing masks for 3 weeks, so to speak, if it need be, so.
Yeah, if it doesn't
Okay.
drop below 10.
Yeah, just wanna make sure that's clear, you know, it's been more than 5 days, why are we still wearing them?
Mark? Okay, does everyone understand the motion? Mr. Pusey, if you could roll call that, please.
Mr. Nicholson?
No.
Mr. Boyer?
Yes.
Mrs. Stokes?
No.
Mr. Kamari?
No.
Mrs. Stevens?
No,
Mr. Downs?
Yes.
Mr. Munn?
Yes.
Mr. Lynch?
No.
Mr. O'Connor?
No.
Mrs. Harrington?
Yes.
Mr. Watson?
Yes.
6-5 no.
All right, so 6-5 no. Is there another option for motion?
Split the middle, make it 2 days. I'll make the motion that we do what we just said, after 2 days. Yeah.
For 2 days. Ms. Stokes? That's
Do you need a second? I'll second, but I also
Okay.
just want to be clear that the reason I'm voting no is because we have no other layers of protection, and our only conversation seems to be masks or no masks. So I'm hoping that we have a committee, and I'm hoping that that committee, I'm sorry, say that.
I just want to make sure that that's inaccurate, because we do have additional mitigation strategies that we implement in our school. We disinfect and clean as directed by the state, and we exceed that. We social distance whenever possible, right? We do all of the additional mitigation strategies possible, so it's I guess, want to make sure the public knows we're doing everything humanly possible within our schools to keep students and staff safe, and I can't thank our staff and our administration enough for doing all of those mitigation strategies, including Mr. Toddy's department, who work exceptionally hard to clean our buildings, right down to our bus company and everyone else that's doing mitigation strategies. So we are doing mitigation strategies as much as humanly possible, spacing people out whenever we can, and cleaning and doing all of those things, self-screening in the mornings and whatnot. Our nurses, everyone's going above and beyond, so I can't thank them enough.
So, can I finish?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I guess my thing was when I look at the CDC guidelines, which I've said before about the pre-screening and the plexiglass, so that's what I was referring to. I was not referring to any employee not doing their job, because I think I've made plenty of statements saying that our staff is amazing and they've done a great job. So I want to make sure that's clear. But I'm talking about the CDC guidelines that talk about multiple layers of protection. And per what they said was the 2 that I've already mentioned. So just want to make sure. Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second on the floor for 2 days, 10%, 5 days masks. Everyone understands? I'm going to roll call it again. Mr. Pusey, if you could please.
Mr. Downs?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
No.
Mr. Kamari?
Yes.
Mrs. Harrington?
Yes.
Mr. Munn?
Yes.
Mrs. Stokes?
No.
Mr. Boyer?
Yes.
Mrs. Stevens?
no,
Mr. Lynch?
No.
Mr. Nicholson?
No.
Mr. Watson?
Yes.
6-5 yes.
Okay. So the mask rule going forward is pre-K to 12, optional for everyone in our schools, unless the Stratford County 7-day test positivity rate exceeds 10% for 2 days. Masks follow for 5. I would also like to ask that we implement or direct the superintendent to work with his staff and all meeting bodies to implement this process effective October 11th. If we do this tonight, people are going to panic, give some time, get organized, put together a plan, get everybody aware of the new system. So I would like to make a motion that we implement this plan as of October 11th.
12.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Mr. Munn?
Are we in school the 11th or the 12th?
It's the
Well,
I'm sorry. So effective 11th, when they come back on the 12th, it would be
Okay.
in play. So I was just trying to give them the day so they didn't have to
No,
try to do this tonight.
Agreed.
Mr. Bowyer, did you have?
That was the same question.
Okay. Mr. Watson, did you have something?
So I was gonna say it's a moot point, but I guess it's not because the elementary kids will still be masked tomorrow, is that what you're saying?
Correct. So it's just one more day until we get it all processed.
So we rescinded current policies,
Yeah.
Yeah, we should do the whole policy.
so
Yeah.
Is that rescinded as of October 11th?
No, can't, because we have to, right, Jerry? We can't do that, we rescind the policy, so there's currently not a policy.
Correct.
Right.
So they don't have-
So there's no mask tomorrow.
There is no policy.
Right.
That might be a problem.
How much difficulties are putting it together for tomorrow is going to be?
It's not a problem. I think it just, the last meeting that we made a change and then I did do it, you know, again, I set everything to go up to get 10 minutes to 7 or whatnot. You know, it just catches families off guard as they're planning their mornings and doing things. So,
I think it's got to be
Mr. O'Connor?
Is there ability to make an amendment to an already approved motion?
I can't amend it, but no. So here's what I would say. If we,
No, addendum, not amend it.
Another
We're going to add an addendum to it.
no motion.
we'd have to make a whole new motion. Yes, yes, I'm sorry, yes.
Just think about it this way, it's to their benefit if they want to go optional. So if they're going to have the mask on, so if we say it's optional, if you choose to, you can take your mask off, they can do that. And if their families have chosen that they're going to keep their mask on, then keep their mask on, because they've already talked to mom and dad, or their
So-
guardian. So I think it's either way, it's fine, I think proper procedure is what Mr. O'Connor said.
I
But
agree, I
it's
think
to
we should
their-
probably just make a motion to make masks, follow the same procedure tomorrow, if possible. That way, if someone doesn't get it, or we don't get the information out,
That's
it
fine.
goes into full effect on the 7th. Mr. Kamiri?
So by rescinding our previous policy
Yep.
of masking, basically tomorrow is mask optional. We haven't hit 3 days of 10, or 2 days, excuse me, 2 days of 10%. So in effect, tomorrow being Friday, it wouldn't be a mask mandated day anyway. So our new policy would go into effect.
Because we're not going the other way, so I get what you're saying. So we
Right.
just make it effective today, and we'll do our best to get people up to speed.
I'm sure it's on time to notify
Right.
the staff. Maybe,
Right, but they can go to school tomorrow with masks and take them off. It's a lot easier than going into school and having to have a mask on you. So they have the option to take it off and put it in their bag.
All right,
Tomorrow bus, you have to mask it in.
we made a motion to move it to the 12th, right? I made a motion for that,
There's a second, so we just,
so we just kill it, right? And nobody voted it, so there's no vote. That works. So do we want to make a motion to implement the new policy as of tomorrow?
technically we already did.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's our.
Perfect, so we're good to go. All right, any other questions? We do have a non-public we have to do, so I'll make a motion to go into non-public under RSA 91A32C.
Second.